So, when I was on break today, my only break was at a 4-hour day. I know I'm coming home late and you're thinking, you had 4 hours? Well, that's what happens when you take the bus. They have to go through the different routes just to get to their destinations, and then they got to switch over and stuff later on. But anyway, getting back on point here, at my break, I saw that Alex Hicks, just Alex, that I follow here on YouTube, and I know I do a lot of reply videos or response videos to what he or even JD and others say, and hey, if it's something that catches my interest because, it centers around something that I'm a fan of, and I do watch, but not on a weekly basis as much as I used to, that being pro wrestling, sports entertainment, then I'm going to want to talk about it. I'm going to want to give my own 2 cents. As well as wait until, enough details have come out, for me to kind of give a decent response, give my own, opinions on the whole situation. So, anyway, about a minute in, or a little of a minute and 20 seconds in, what I'm talking about, and the title pretty much probably gives it away here, is WWE is apparently planning to go back to the TV-14 rating. Yeah, you heard me right. Now, when Alex reported this originally, he reported something that Andrew Zarian of the Madman podcast of basically F4W Online. Basically, Andrew Zarian, who has been known, along with the likes of Sean Ross Sapp, he has been known to, be very reliable when it comes to breaking some news. When it comes to professional wrestling, whether it's WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, you name it. He's been very reliable, one of the people out there anyway. And apparently he heard from a source, in the know, in the company, that WWE is planning to go back to TV-14. Now, initially he had said that the report, or at least in his mind, or at least from his thought process, the report suggested that the return to TV-14 was going to be this Monday, July 18th. However, and this is why I wanted to wait to give my thoughts on it, because I wanted to see if any more information would come out. However, he had to correct that. He had to correct that because apparently WWE had sent out a notice, if you will, to the USA Network, or I think it was USA, either or, maybe both at the same time, had sent out a notice to WWE, had sent out a notice to each other, I guess you could say, on the plans for WWE to go back to TV-14. And again, I'm assuming it was WWE that sent out the memo to USA, or vice versa, one of the two. Anyway, Andrew Zarian had to correct his report, update it, if you will, by stating that yes, information had been leaked that they were returning to TV-14. However, there was no actual specific date as to when it was going to happen. Yeah, there was no actual specific date as to when the return to TV-14 was going to happen, thus scratching out any possibility of this Monday being the day it happens, or being the night it happens on Monday Night Raw. And of course, some people replied initially to the initial report with mixed reactions, like, okay, this sounds cool and everything, and others were like, well, yeah, that's great, but as long as Vince and, Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn and Pritchard are still running things, it's still going to be a grade A or grade B shit show, or whatever people like to call it, if it's not up to their standard of sports entertainment, pro wrestling. And, people have a right to that opinion because WWE has, not really shown that on a weekly basis they can do what apparently they like to save up and do for the pay-per-views. Because apparently the pay-per-views seem to be more of a focal point. In other words, that's when they allow the men and the women in the company to go out and show that, hey, we could just be just as good, if not a bit better, than a certain All Elite promotion. But yeah, again, it had a mixed reaction. Some are like, okay, cool, that's great. Some are like, it doesn't really matter, as long as those three morons, three stooges are in charge, So yeah, it's got a bit of a mixed reaction. Now, my thought process on this is kind of in the same vein. All right? You see, let me put it this way. I'm kind of cool with the idea that they want to go back to TV-14, no matter whose decision it was for it to happen, whether it was WWE's or USA or a mutual agreement on both ends. I'm cool with the idea that they want to do it, because obviously they realize that the core audience that they should be going after is in that 14 range. And if I'm also going to be totally honest, I'm not really surprised that this decision, leaked or not, has come to be. I'm not surprised by it. And why, you may ask? Well, quite simply, you look at NXT 2.0, or NXT if you just want to look at it like that, and wipe away the 2.0 stench, or just the 2.0 add on to the name. And you take a look at what they've been doing with the likes of Toxic Attraction. You take a look at what they're doing with Joe Gacy and his crew, who are rumored to be the Grizzly Young Veterans. You take a look at what they're doing with Lash Legend. What they're probably going to do with Jordan Devlin, J.D. McDougan. You look at all these, you look at all these people, including what they're doing with A-Kid, who's now under a new name, basically a superhero name with a, disguise and everything, whether or not that fits into 14 or into the TV-14 area in realm is up to them, although Hurricane made it, Hurricane Helms and Mighty Molly Holly made it work, so who's to say A-Kid can't do it with his new gimmick? But the point is, you look at a lot of the other examples I mentioned, and I'm not surprised that this is something they want to do, because when you look at how Toxic Attraction's been presented and how Mandy Rose has been presented, as of late since being back in NXT, along with her crew, and then like I mentioned, Joe Gacy and his group and such and others, I'm not really surprised that this has been announced, because I think they were testing the waters in NXT to see how receptive folks would be to a potential TV-14-like product being on the screen. And obviously, it seems that it was a positive reception. In other words, a lot of fans liked it. And I think even USA liked it. Which is why, depending on, again, who was really responsible for sending out the notice to potentially or inevitably have the 14 rating return, obviously USA, had to be, cool with it, or had to be responsible for maybe suggesting it or sending the letter out or whatever, because they, like the fans, liked what they saw with NXT, and now they want to see the same applied on Monday Night Raw. And, if that's the case, cool. Again, cool. That's cool. It's cool with me. But, the one thing a lot of people point out, though, is despite the fact that they want to do this and maybe allow for a little bit more elbow room for wrestlers to be more, to be more creative, or even allow the people that help them, if you believe that, to be more creative and such. And you'll allow the vocabulary to finally be more expressive, even though it would allow them to do that, The one negative that a lot of fans still look at is the fact that, again, as I mentioned earlier, to them, if you still have the likes of Vince and Kevin and, and Bruce behind the scenes, what's really going to change besides them saying, hey, I'm going to let you have a little bit more lead room in what you say, how you act and stuff, what's really going to change? And that's why even though part of them are like, great, this is cool and everything, this is great to hear, it still doesn't change the fact that the product will pretty much be the same, but with a more, I guess you could say, edgier attitude to it. Edgier attitude, raunchiness maybe to it. And also I think, and I don't know if anybody brought this up yet, but I also think the reason we're getting this change too is because what matchup do we have upcoming? What matchup do we have upcoming at SummerSlam, huh? What matchup? We have Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns in a last man standing match. And the way they are playing this up, is it's going to be a very violent matchup, unlike the likes, what's that word, how'd that saying go? It's going to be okay, let me correct myself. All right. It's going to, the way they're playing up the street fight between Roman and Brock, they're playing it up like it's going to be the most vicious, violent match, unlike any hardcore or last man standing match we've seen in quite some time. That's how they're playing it up. And the only way you'll be able to get away with living up to that hype between these two at SummerSlam is to, I guess, up the rating so that there is no blacking out of grayscaling or black and whiting the imagery of both men bleeding in the highlights or whatever, later on. If you're going to allow this to live up to the hype of being violent and everything, being, where Roman Reigns has got to be, more savage than he's ever been, and Brock's going to be more of a beast than he's ever been, obviously you got to go in that direction. You really have to do it. And I think, obviously, like I said, with them building up the matchup in that manner, what was seen was NXT 2.0 in some cases, as well as the way, believe it or not, they're presenting the Viking Raiders, on SmackDown. It's almost like, the building to, it's like they've been built, kind of putting right before our eyes the building blocks, to this inevitable change. But the question is, will it be a decision that succeeds for them in the long run? I don't know. Because again, a lot of people are saying that as long as, McMahon and Dunn and Pritchard are running things behind the scenes in Gorilla, nothing's going to really change. As long as Vince has his pulse on creative, nothing, along with those two that I mentioned, nothing's going to change. But, but maybe there will be change because here's the thing. Here's the thing we cannot deny about Vince McMahon. Whether we like the guy or we don't. We know that when he is pushed against the corner, when he is basically cornered, if you will, that he's not only going to come out swinging as best he could, he's going to pull out all the big guns. He's going to pull out all the tricks of the trade. He's going to go in directions and places you wouldn't expect him to go to succeed. And if going TV-14 allows him to finally get a little crazier than usual once again, you know, to show that we're still the be-all, end-all of sports entertainment, professional wrestling, then so be it. But here's the thing, it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time for Vince McMahon to show that this TV-14 thing is going to allow him and anybody else to be more creative than they've ever been. And hopefully for the better. Because if they continue to be a shit show, as people put it, you know, as long as they continue to be, if they continue to be a shit show, as some people put it, then, you know, nothing is going to really change, period. And then this, you know, upgrade in rating is going to be for naught. But what are your thoughts, guys? How do you feel about WWE eventually, before this year is out, going back to TV-14? Do you think it will help them out? Do you think it's a smart move? Do you think some things will change? Or do you think nothing will change, period? Let me know down below in the comments. As well as the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chat, super sticks will be open during the premiere, during the live chat, during the premiere, and super thanks afterwards. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Check me out at TikTok and everything. Check me out at TikTok, and I will talk to you later.